sorry, I want to pick this up too on the Zoom. We we're talking about woods tree saddles, and you were telling me previously to this there was some stuff you were gonna have to change the name around a little bit for some stuff. So I want to make sure that we bring that up so that we don't get in any trouble. So
Yes, sir. Yeah. When we started our company, we did a few of the little trademark searches, and what we didn't catch on to and was made privy to me is that the actual term tree saddle has been trademarked by another company. And the guy was real nice. He reached out, real polite, and just said, "Hey, look, I'm gonna give you a little time if you would, and you can't have tree saddles in the title." And I respect him for that and don't want any issues. So yeah, we're going to rebrand slightly. We're still sticking with our image. It'll just be wood hunting saddles instead of wood tree saddles. So we're just going to change tree to hunting and stick with our no gimmicks type of promotion. So
okay, that's fair enough and simple enough. And like you said, you went with putting your name on it because you want to say that standing behind a product that you know like if it carries your name, you stand behind it is what you know.
Yes, sir. That whole concept, like I was saying, it kind of came from my great grandfather, who was one of those guys that said he was kind of you give 10% to God, you put 10% away, you'll never be without. And if you're going to do something, you do an honest day's work for an honest day's pay, and you put a name behind anything you do. So when me and my wife started doing this, and we saw how much, I guess the phrase would be hype marketing there is behind saddles right now.
Yes.
And there's a lot. Like, you can't get on any YouTube channel without finding something about it. And I appreciate that. It's growing the industry really fast, but we wanted something that we were proud to, like you said, put our name behind. So that's kind of what we did. No hype market gimmicking. So
Yeah, it's like they tree saddles, like I think they're like it goes way back to uh you know way back. It's probably 40 to 60 years worth of time with it, but it hasn't gotten popular until like the last 3 to 6 years maybe. And I think that's more because everybody started talking about this run and gun setup on public land. And I've hunted the lock-ons and picks and spurs and like you name it, to hunt public. In some places you can use them, some you can't, with spurs or and you have to use sticks. But it's like I've used all that, and even a light lock-on's 8 pounds maybe. I think the lightest one on the market right now is probably
a lone 0.5, 5.5, 6 pounds roughly. Yeah.
Is it the Lone Wolf? Because I know the Beast, the one that Dan Infault makes, the Beast is pretty light.
Yes.
I don't know the exact numbers on it, but that's the two lightest ones. And it's like, then you get your sticks involved. So it's like, you're still up around 8 to 10 pounds. Because I know I was listening to something the other day, and the original like wolf climbing sticks were 3 pounds lighter than the ones that are out now. It's like they changed something, and they're actually heavier now than they were when they first came out. And it's like how they went the opposite. There was like maybe they were just way cheaper materials when they and it's like,
I have a theory with that, is that as standards get more strenuous, and this is any industry, as standards get more strenuous, you have to meet those standards. And what's happened a lot of times is areas they could shave material. And I'm not speaking for any one company in general. This is even stands as a whole. If you look back in the 80s, there were several stands that were, I don't know, 8 pounds, 10 pounds, that were hang on, lock on style stands. And people were having injuries in them. Like, that was a pretty common thing, especially with the metal climbers of the late 80s and early 90s. So I think as standards have gotten more strenuous, they've had to increase, metal, especially with these cast aluminum and weld aluminum. They're having to, enforce it in certain areas, and that's probably adding weight to. I mean, it's anything.
And it's like, speaking of climbers, I hunt. I have one of my climbers I carry is one of the original like aluminum old mans with the net, the net seat and everything. It's like 19 pounds. That's one of the lightest climbers that was ever built. and it gets heavy after a long walk. Like, I mean, you know, like you don't think 19 pounds is a lot. Strap it on your back and go 2 miles. You know, it's
Like
like,
go three
you know,
quarters a mile through palm hammocks. I mean,
yeah, it's
that's
like,
absolutely.
yeah, it gets, and it catches on everything. And like, so it's like people started looking for a way to get away from that and around it. And saddles have gotten the, you know, they're the ooh and ah, the, you know, the, of it. And it's like you said, you know, you and I've talked prior to this, so I know some of the stuff, and that's you said you got it. You first started trying to you saddle hunting some in the early '90s, I think is what you told me, and got and didn't like it and got away from it.
Yeah. So the first first time I ever tried it, I had a an uncle from Georgia, and he tried. It was I believe they were Big Buck was the name of it, and it was basically an Anderson tree sling, but it was a kind of like a 2 panel conglomerate, and it's like you could put one panel a little under your butt and one on your back, and it didn't have a waist belt or anything, but the strap went around the tree and wrote back to itself, and it kind of held you there. And they built it as the safer way to hunt because a lot of people were still building wooden platforms back then, and stuff like that. And it was you could kind of you could see the pros of it, but for me at that point in time, I was young, and it was probably mid 90s. I was in my teens. It wasn't what I would consider the most comfortable setup for back then, and so I got away from it. I tried it maybe 2 or 3 times and was like, nope, this will never happen again. And I went to hang-ons. Whenever I met my wife, we bought a few 2-man ladder stands with the idea that she wanted to go out with me. Bless her heart, she's been a trooper through all this, and that's kind of how we ended up back where we are. So the same year that we met, and it was hunting season, and we get out there at the end of season, and our one of our 2 men that was out had been ransacked. I mean, they stole everything you could steal off of a tree stand except the stand. The stand was locked, but they took the fork to the tree that supports the ladder. They took all the straps. They took the cushions. They took the bow holder I had strapped to each side. Like, oh man, they ransacked that thing, and it was heavy. I mean, it was, I think, 30 pounds for that particular 2-man stand because it was steel, and we had to haul it out, like 3/4 of a mile through Florida swamp. And it just, man, it was so disheartening to see that it was kind of like, all right, I've got to do something a little different here. And that led to the revert back to saddles. I actually had a good friend of mine from work that hunted saddles since probably '05, and he was talking to us about going back to them. And I just, at the time, I think there was only one on the market. I think because a trophy line had closed down for a little while, and the only thing that was out at that point, I believe, was Arrow Hunter with the original Kestrel, is what I think it was. And that was a good saddle, but it was a little out of what I would consider my price range at the time. So my wife actually, and my daughter's a theater tech at school, so she has a lot of sewing experience. My wife makes her costumes and stuff for her recitals and all that stuff. So they're real crafty, and I'm very rigging eccentric due to my background. And so what we did was we started playing with things and making our own. And it just, one thing led from another. I made one and it was pretty good. I hung out of it for a while. She started hunting with me out of one. And then as I progressed, and I was actually hand sewing them, it's crazy. Sewing them like with a needle, like a bald palm and everything back then. And I sewed a few, and then
So
I took one.
you had
Yeah,
to you had to trust y'all stitching skills real quick, huh?
what I found out was that with the hand stitching, it's actually the lock stitch that's created for machines
Mhm.
is a copy of the original hand stitch called the back stitch. And the whole idea is each stitch goes back and it locks itself all the way back into itself. So that if you were to cut the thread there, it wouldn't unravel each direction. And But yeah, so when you have a lock stitch sewing machine, that is what it's mimicking. So it was just less holes in the saddle, because you're putting one every eighth of an inch or more apart, as
Mhm.
opposed to what you can do with the machine. And
Yeah.
it's not as pretty, but you're doubling your thread as you go through. So it was plenty strong.
Yeah.
It was just, it'd take me like 15, 18 hours to build one. It was crazy. And I made a few, and we found something that we really liked as far as materials and stuff. And I took it to work to show my technical trainer, the guy that runs our climbing school and stuff. And he was like, he loved it. He looked at it, he's like, man, how much? I said, I ain't selling these, dude. I said, that's a liability issue. I have no urge to do all that. And he was like, look, man, I've been doing this since 2004. I taught you how to climb. Come on, you can trust me. So we made one for him, and I asked him not to tell anybody. And of course he told somebody, and then he brought me somebody else. And it was like, after a few weeks, a month, I started having all these guys reaching out to me that were all interested in it. And so we just kind of decided to try a company then and there. And with COVID hitting like it did, all of our plans got postponed for almost a year. So
that changed a lot of things with, like, people. It's like when it hit, like when they shut everything down, the day they shut everything down here in Louisiana, I was actually in Grand Isle fishing. My wife called me and she's like, hey, the governor just shut the state down. I'm like, okay, I'll see you tonight or in the morning. I'm fishing, like, she's laughed. She's like, okay, just letting you know, like, cause we were oblivious to anything going on because we were fishing, like, next day we come in town and I'm like, well, like, what do you, like, it's shut down? She's like, yeah. I was like, oh. So it was like, but that's we could go on a whole nother, like, yeah. And it's like, but yeah, that's what, so it just, just one thing after another with the guys wanting one. And so 18 hours of hand sewing was probably, you had to find a way to get away from that quick, probably. Cause I mean, that had to be just rough on the hands. Like, forget the time frame. It just had to, like, hurt. Like,
I think about something that old sail makers used to make in the maritime industry, how they'd have to use the palm thimbles, and they would sew up their sails and whipping by hand.
yeah.
And I'm just like, I'm like, man, I don't think I'd have made it in the Viking days.
Right.
It wouldn't have worked out for me.
We wouldn't have been exploring, man. We just been, we where we at, we staying. But so yeah, so that just started, like you said, that kind of slowed down the COVID thing. But it was just, y'all started, like, developing your brand per se to move into it and go from there. And is so y'all started with, like, the ones, I guess, just a one basic style you had, and that's what you were producing for all these guys.
Yes, sir. We started with on our website, it's listed as the original. And it's
What's that going, and what's that website?
it's www.woodtreesaddles, all one word,
Okay.
.com.
Okay. That's what we I'm going to try to put a link in here to it also, but yeah, I wanted to make sure that I didn't say the wrong one. I was like, I think it's Woods Tree Saddle still, but I want to make sure and let him, in case he changed that since we talked, because I didn't ask you that earlier. I apologize.
We purchased our new domain, but we got to wait for approval from the state to change our business ID and all that before we can change over to the new domain. So for right now, it's still Wood Tree Saddles, or they can get us on Eastern Woods Outdoors.
Yeah.
Dano's carrying our saddles there as well. So big
shout
out.
When I went to his I texted you the other day, because when I went to his website to order my one stick setup, I text you, I was like, hey, he sells y'all stuff, and you're like, yeah. It's like, so I was like, cool. It's great that you got him produced, because I mean, getting them out like that's the next step. And like you said, it started with, sorry I interrupted, but it started with the original, and that's the one that's still on your website. And then where's it went to from there?
Yeah, so with the original, we found a material that worked good, and the idea was, as long as the key really in this whole saddle is the shape, and then the way the bridge works. Like with the older saddles that companies were making, the bridge kind of floated on the bridge loops, and so you might have a spot that the saddle would be really, really comfortable at, but then as you sat or leaned and shifted your weight, it would move on the bridge, and that would change your pressure points basically. And so with us, we I started doing them that way originally, and we had an adjustable AM steel bridge, and it was just open loop. And one of the guys that I sold to came to me, and he's like, "Hey, so I got this one spot that is like the sweet spot." He goes, "When I put it here, it don't matter if I sit, stand, what I do, it's perfect, but I can't get it to stay there. Can you figure out a way?" So from there, we started making the eye on the bridges a little bit longer, and allowed us to do. First, we tried it with just a girth hitch, and it would stay real well unless you moved it to an extreme high or low. And then we went from that to it's a 4-wrap Prusik or a double girth, however you want to call it. It what it does is it allows it to still slide easy if you want to. You just put your finger to it and you can go up and down the bridge loops pretty easy to adjust your pressure settings. But it still grabs when you find that spot you want and you sit down in it, it'll stay there for as long as you want it to. And that was kind of the perfection for the original. Like when we got that, we were like, okay, this is going to be what we go to market with. And we actually reached out to a sewing contractor out in Albuquerque, and we inked a deal with them, and they're making like $100 a month for us. And it was awesome. You know, they do some fantastic stitching. And from there, the deluxe, because I have one guy that bought one from us, and none of my saddles have ever been returned, like ever. And then all of a sudden, this one guy comes back and he's like, "I like it." You know, he goes, "But I one stick, and then when I get up, I lean a lot." And he said, "So just there's one spot of pressure I'm not liking on this, because everybody's body type is different."
Mhm.
And he was like, "I really like something like pleated, like the old Arrow Hunter Flex or the Kestrel. Is there any way you can kind of take your design and maybe open it out a little more and add a pleat for me?" So we tried it, and I decided I needed a stiffer mesh for that particular one, something that could hold its shape better so it wouldn't fall open. Because a lot of problems with the pleated saddles were that, let's see if I have one here. When you start walking in them and stuff, they would just start falling open. So this one here, it's got a big pleat, but because of the stiffer mesh, it doesn't just fall open. So you have to actually intentionally pull it. Oh, sorry about that. But we took and we started making that for him specifically, and he liked it. So we decided we'd take it to market too and see how it did. And it's been probably our best-selling saddle of the last 6 months. So it's been pretty popular.
And then you have a specifically one for females too, you were telling me about earlier?
Yes, sir. So we call that the Huntress. And women are a little bit shorter than men. And then if you look at the shape, usually women widen out in the hips a little more than men do. Just a little bit, you know. And so the way I designed that one was it has a little more of a slow incline, so that, you know, they're not getting any hip pinching, ain't coming up on their hip bones and pinching. And then just for kicks, you know, my wife doesn't really like pink and purple camo. She's not that person. But a lot of her friends that hunt, and a lot of, you know, women that I know growing up out here, they liked the pink camo and stuff like that. So what we did was we sourced, you know, the pink camo, and it's on the interior only. It's not on the exterior. So the exterior is still a nice camouflage. It'll match your clothes, you know, ain't gonna stand out like a sore thumb. But the interior has a pink camo. And then we put on our deluxes and the Huntress, we put a actual reflective tracer thread on the inside of the linesman loops. And the idea with that is, say you're clipping in the dark, and with a headlamp, the threads will reflect back at you, and with that brighter webbing color, you can see it easy to make a positive click connection. And that was, you know, just little things to give it kind of a touch that might appeal more towards the ladies who want to hunt.
That's cool, because a lot of company, like, some do it, some don't. I mean, and that's a big market, and that's what like the pink thing. Like, I know, like during rifle season, we're supposed to wear Hunter's orange, but they changed it a couple years ago. We can wear hot pink. Like you can wear the pink. And I'll throw a lot of times, like if I'm on public land hunting, I'll have like a thin long sleeve on. Then I'll throw like a orange polo or whatever on over that because I'm like, I gotta wear it anyway, so I might as well, And it's like, and so I just don't like the little orange shirt, or like I just don't like
Yeah.
that. So I'll throw a whole. So I had one of the, like, I wear pink, it doesn't bother me. So like I had the hot pink shirt on one day, like polo, and the game warden's checking my license. He's like, "Do you have the hat to match it?" I was like, "No, my hat's orange. Like, sorry, like I don't have the pink hat." And he's like laughing. He's like, he's like, "You're the only dude I've checked that's been in pink." And I'm like, "Hey, you know what?" He's like, "And you're the only guy I've ever checked and's been in a polo. Like, why are you in a polo?" And I'm like, "It's I got it. Like, it's orange or it's
It's
pink. Like, it
there.
works." I was like, and I'm wearing a shirt. Like, it's not like, I was like, I can't forget to have this on. I was like, I will forget that little, like, I'll get in the truck, pull that little vest off, throw it down and get out and get halfway across a clear cut, carrying a stand. And I'm like, crap. Got to turn around, go back. But it's like, so yeah, but I just, they changed that where we can wear pink, and it cracks me up because it was like they were trying to get like more people involved, like
More
women
women
involved.
involved
Yep.
is, yeah.
But yeah, so but yeah, that's what I saw. That's what I said. So you have basically three types, and then you were telling me a while ago you're not ready to come out with it, but if you can talk about it a little bit, you have a fourth one, or are we allowed to
Well,
talk about that,
absolutely.
or.
Yep. Sometime in the next month or two, we're going to release our version of the 2-panel saddle. We're fixing to take it up to Georgia probably middle of next month and do the drop test with it. Because even though there's not saddle standards yet, they're publishing them currently.
Mhm.
As far as what they have to meet criteria wise for dropping, braking, et cetera, dynamic loading, stuff like that. There haven't never historically been standards. And in the last, I'd say 2 years now, ASTM and the TMA have put together a subcommittee, and they're coming out with some saddle standards. And because I like to know, hey, if I'm going to get in it and my family's going to be in it, we all hunt. From my 10-year-old son, my 14-year-old daughter, my wife, myself, my dad, my brother. If we're all going to be in my gear, I want to know it's safe. And
Yeah,
if I'm going to sell it to you, I want to know that if something happened and you got hurt, it's because of something you did, not because of something I did wrong. You know what I
totally
mean?
agree. Totally agree.
So we take all of our gear up there and have it tested before we launch it to the public, which is not all that common. You won't find a lot of companies that release their standards report or have videos of the drop testing and stuff like that. There's not a lot of them. And we released all of them, including the linesman loop drops that are very, very strenuous. So
That's what I was fixing to say. Like, a lot of people aren't familiar with what you're talking about with like the drop test. Do you want to give us a basic rundown if you can?
yeah,
So,
so and the only testing criteria they've had right now are for what you call the full body harness fall arrest system.
mhm.
And that's a 5-point harness. It hooks behind your head and shoulders. And it's created to where if you fell off your stand, because you're supposed to wear a harness. A lot of
Yep.
people didn't.
A lot of people don't.
Guilty back in the day, guilty.
Back in the day,
But
yeah.
so you should wear one because it's 5 o'clock in the morning. You might doze off. It happens. It rains. It gets wet. People that hunt where it's snowy, it's slick. I get mud on my boots when I
Get
track
mud
through
on
the
your
snow.
boots. It's slick.
Yeah. So
It
the
happens.
way the drop tests work is they take a dummy and you determine what you want to rate your saddle to as far as a weight. We rate ours to 300 pounds because if I go up any higher, the insurance is going to eat me alive. So
Hey, at
quite
least
honestly,
like
I could drop mine probably 50 to 100 pounds heavier, and I believe it would still pass with flying colors based on our results.
mhm.
But the liability insurance for a life support it's crazy.
Once you get
So
above a certain weight, they hit you hard.
it increases as you get heavier because it's kind of like this. I mean, you really think about it, how many, and this is not the downing, but how many 350-pound men are fit enough to actually climb a tree and do that without it being a health concern, I guess,
Yeah,
would be the general basis. Because if they fell, how hard would it be for them to get back up? Recovery, how hard would it be?
yeah.
So I can understand it, but yeah. So getting back to that, the drop test is it's a dummy that has no legs and no arms, just a big round dummy. You strap to it, and it's designed to fall on a full body arrest. So they drop it. It's the equivalent. All the drops are between like 4 and 6 foot. Like it's a long drop, and you have what you call fall factors. The It's not just how far you fall; it's how high you are above your anchor point. So a 2 foot fall doesn't sound like much, but a 2 foot fall on a 2 to 1, where you've actually say got a foot of slack and you went a foot above your anchor point, that is no different basically than falling 5 foot straight on anything else. Like its fall factor plays a huge, even on static rope, it plays a part in how much force you're generating. So you drop these dummies, and you have to, not only does it have to catch it, it has to keep it inverted, not letting it fall upside down, or, and then it has to hold it in a tree for several minutes after, to make sure that the stitching hasn't broke and none of the major components have failed, like your buckles, your leg straps. So it's tough, because they do a lot of different drops. They got a face first drop. They got a 300-pound drop. You have the 220-pound, what they call maximum force arrest, where the saddle gets dropped or the harness gets dropped, and it measures the amount of force that is absorbed at the point. And the idea is your body can only handle about 1,800 pounds of force. On the lower you get, the better. And ours did really, really well. I think we generated like 1,163 pounds on the original, awesome. Which is, that's it's safe. And but yeah, so we're going to go do those drop tests, and once I know that the 2 panel is safe and it's got a good design, we're going to get them out on the market. I've got a couple guys that are trying them out, and we feel like it'll be a new exciting venture for us to get into there. Awesome. Because they're starting to take off.
Yeah, it definitely, like I said before we got on this, I was talking about, one of my buddies uses a 2 panel from with other companies, and like I tried it out, and it was like, man, it's different. Like it's nice. So it's like, but like going into the saddles, like you said, like hunting and everything. And before we got into the conversation, we've talked a few times through text and today, but you were telling me, just talking, that you'd had prior neck surgery, and using the saddle, with having that there, you don't see any complications. Like you feel comfortable doing it. Like
so for me, it kind of works out, because the more weight you're carrying, even if you got it strapped across your shoulders and your backpack, that's a lot of stress on your upper back, lower neck. So the saddle works out great for me, because I think my platform weighs about 4 pounds when I take it. Usually I'm what they call ring of steps guy. So I don't really take much weight anyway, but the platform's like 4 pounds. My saddle on my original is 1 pound and 6 ounces. So I'm going out with basically 5.5 pounds there. And then my climbing method, if I'm on private land, I prefer they call climbing spurs, because I work in utility, and we went to climbing school. So I enjoy that when I'm allowed.
I'm the same way. I use mine. I have a couple sets, and I'll use on private land, but it's like public can't exactly do that. They kind of frown upon that.
Yeah, it's actually legal in some states.
Some states, I was reading.
I didn't know that Georgia. I just found out Georgia doesn't have a rule against spiking the tree. So I every year that I had ever gone up to Georgia, we had climbed on either sticks or ropes, and I just found out this past season that there's no rule against spikes on Georgia. So Georgia guys, y'all are lucky.
Yeah, it's because I've read certain states didn't have it. I'm like, it's like we, it's like like I said, on private, I'll use my spurs because it's just, I'm comfortable using them. And it's like, and then, like I said, my buddies that climb, we were playing the other day, and I had my spurs, and both sets were in the bed of my truck, my bed cover. I got a bed cover. So they were fine. They were in there because I'd been messing with them here at the house. And we went over there to film for his, with his stuff to put on our YouTube channel about the saddle setup. And on that, I talked about having this podcast that we're recording now with you. And they look at me and they're like, "You got spurs?" I'm like, because they haven't ever hunted with me on private land. I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah. And they're like, you use those? I'm like, yeah, y'all ever use the set? And they're like, no. And I'm like, okay, you want to learn? Like, I was like, once you get the hang of it, it's not bad. But it's like getting the hang of it at first. Like,
There's a method to it. Like I tell everybody, it's funny because there's two different trains of thought, but the bottom line is the technique should be similar. And when you step in a spike, you keep your toes pointed to the sky. That's one thing, because the minute you roll your toes forward and down, you're going to cut out.
Mhm.
So that's one thing. And then the other thing, I'm the old school thought. You lock your knees out. Like there's the new thing that, oh, that's bad for you. Don't lock your knees out. But if your knees are locked and your toes are pointed to the sky, your hips are always going to be at that perfect 30-degree angle from the tree. And that's where you want to be.
That's where it
Like
keeps the pressure.
to keep the cut out, to make it dig in
Mhm.
better, you're more balanced. For guys that don't know, that is probably the I wouldn't say it's the lightest, because there's guys out there who are doing something called a 2 tether climb. That is just, there's no weight to that at all.
Mhm.
And but
Oh, like you said, like the carbon fiber spurs. Dude, I picked a set of them up the other day. I don't remember where I was at. Like, I think I was at a pawn shop. I stopped by just killing time, and they had a set. And I'm looking at them. I'm like holding both of those right in my hand, and I'm like, dude, one of mine weighs more than both of these. Like, you know. And I'm like, I was like, I already have two sets. I don't need a third set, even though they're lighter, so I'm not buying them. And the
man,
price
I,
wasn't
I
bad.
can't. We went to a utility event. They have these things called rodeos, and the guys had a pair, and I can't remember what they were. If they were like Bashlins or if they were Gecko, I can't remember. But they were either a titanium or a carbon fiber, and it was like they were like 2 pounds,
Yeah, yeah.
two and a half
Like
pounds. And I'm like,
the
I still
pair
got an
weight.
old Buckingham that's
Yeah,
steel with
I
leather
got a
toe
pair.
straps.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what mine is. A pair of Buckingham, like single spike, you know. And
But when I looked at the price, you
yeah,
couldn't look. The day I spent $1,000 on something I'm only using for 45 seconds up the tree and 45 seconds back down it,
yeah.
that's just, it's not happening. I don't care
Right?
how light that is. I will
I was
suffer.
like, but it's like when I picked it up, I'm like, dude, I think the leather on mine weighs more than this. Like it was just insane. But
Yeah,
you were talking
my
about
wife would
using
kill me.
mine would too. And it's like you were talking about your climb, then your public land climbing method. You said was a rope setup or what do you?
Yes. So I've tried. I'll be the first to tell you. I have tried everything from back when there was the 30 to 36 inch strap, hang on sticks that were still steel.
Mhm.
And I've tried those. I've went to the Muddy Pros, which I really was a big fan of them because they were like only like 2.5 pounds or something, maybe just under 3 pounds a piece, which for at the time was insanely light.
Mhm.
And most recently I've gone to the Hawk Heliums, I guess they are. And they're light, but I'm just not they don't have enough clearance for my feet. Like I'm a size 13 to 14 boot, and I need more clearance than that. So Dano makes with Eastern Woods, they make some really, really good standoffs. Like Eastern Woods, if you're looking for the best standoff on a stick in the industry, the standoffs they sell are the best. And at least in my mind, they will be forever because they give you a lot of clearance from the tree. And so, I've used sticks, and they're nice and they aren't too heavy, but that's still a fiddle factor. You gotta, pack them together, pull them out, do all that. And it's not slow getting up the tree, but it's not as quick as I'd like either. If I'm hunting a place I've been before, if I have a chance to scout, a day before, a couple weeks, I do what we call presets. So I'll go out with a throw ball and some throw line and paracord, and I'll pick branches on the trees that I like, and I'll toss over the branch and tie a double fisherman's knot at the end and leave it in loop, and tuck the paracord out the way so nobody else sees it. and I use reflective paracord. So when I come in at night, I shine my headlamp on it. I can, I can get the reflective, I can find my tree, and I use that for ropes. And then I'll do some, it's called DRT climbing. So I'll use that, pull over the branch, tie in on a Blake's hitch with a tail, and then a secondary Blake's hitch, and basically walk up the tree like Batman scales a building. I mean, it's arborists have used for a long time now, and it's probably the safest way to get up a tree, as long as you pick a good line, a live tree, and a good thick crotch, like it's bigger around than your arm. As long as the branch you're over is bigger around your arm, your calf, something like that, it's going to hold you, and you're never untensioned. You've always got tension when you're getting up, so there's no chance to fall. And the other way I do it is called SRT climbing. And if I'm hunting pine trees, obviously I don't want pine sap all over my ropes and pulling it over across the branch. You're going to get sap, right? So with SRT, what I'll do is I've got like 4 pieces of PVC that I cut down to about 28 to 30 inches, and I'll leave the bell ends. I'll stack them on each other, and I'll girth hitch at the bottom of the tree like you would your tether, and just walk it up. I keep walking it up, add me another stick, keep on going. So I get it up around, 15, 16 foot. And then I can stand on my platform, mount my platform at the bottom of the tree, about 3 foot high, 2.5, and get it up the last couple feet so that I can still get up 15, 16 foot. And I will climb on a rope that way. And that it allows me with there's a mechanical device called the Grigri Plus. I know a lot of guys like the Mad Rock Safeguard. If your buddy's rappelling, that's probably what he's using. I like the Grigri. It's just a really smooth rappel. So I'll use it, ascend up a tree. I still tether off at height. A lot of guys don't, but and I don't like 35 foot of rope having to be rolled up and moving with me. So I'll pull it up, set up my backpack, put it on a gear strap and hanging out of the way. And then when I'm done at the end of the day and ready to get down, it's literally as easy as hopping down, pulling a lever, and just sliding down the tree. That's my preferred way to get on and off public land. If I have presets, just DRT. There's nothing mechanical, nothing fancy. If I don't have time for presets, it's SRT. And that's, like I said, it's the way arborists have been getting up and down trees for a long time. So
Yeah. So it's a tried and true proven method.
And it's light, man. Like you're talking SRT, you need about 35, 40 foot of rope, and that weighs about 2 pounds, 2.5. If you DRT, you take about 75 to 80 foot of rope, so 4.5 pounds maybe. So you're talking up to 25, 30 foot on 4 pounds or less.
Yeah. So it's like when you're talking about eastern out woods, I'm gonna run the 1 stick setup. It's actually, I think, supposed to be here tomorrow, according to what I just got an email while we were talking, so I pulled up and looked at. So it's supposed to be here tomorrow. I got the 1 stick set up. I went with a 15-inch step because like my buddy runs an 18, but he's also like I'm 5'6", 5'7", so 18 I can step it, but the 15 was. I was like, I'm gonna go with the 15. It's just a little more comfortable, with that going up and down it if that's what I'm using.
Right.
Then I went with the he has the sewn in aider step, and he's like, dude, and my buddy was like, I was like, man, go on and get the adjustable 3-step. And so I got the ultimate one, and it's cheaper. It's cheaper than the sewn in one.
Dude, that was a genius setup. The guy that made that reached out to us not too long ago. And if you're going to use aiders, it's brilliant because it folds away real nice. It's adjustable in length all the way to like 24 inches and down to like 10
12 to 24 or something. It's like crazy.
Yeah. And it don't weigh nothing. So
no, Ty was like, go with that, man. He's like, because you can also take it off and put it on something else. He's like, because the way it hooks over your 1-step. He's like, my sewn in one, he said, it's on this 1-step. It's all I got. Like it's there. And
so did you get Dano's UP?
His the ultimate platform?
Yeah.
No, I went with on the 1-step, what I went with was the you had instead of the angled one, the flat one, I went with that.
Okay.
And let's see, give me a second and I'll tell you exactly what I got. And Yeah, that's telling me when it's coming. Let me see what I. Sorry, I'm trying to
No,
see.
no, no, don't
That way I'm not.
apologize. Hey, I'll tell you something right now. Eastern Woods has gotten a lot of my money in the last few years because I love that place it's
Oh
a
yeah,
one-stop shop for pretty much anything if you're a DIY guy, especially.
I got the Ultimate Aider, like we said. Then I got the 15-inch camo dip feather stick
Oh, awesome.
with the wire rope handle for the one sticking.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the one stick rope, where it comes back, and then the cam-matic where the cleat that's on it, where you put your rope back through
Mm-hmm.
on the stick. That then the your brackets that go on it. Then the one step double slotted. I don't double slotted aider. I don't know what that is. That's not supposed to be on there, I think. Then I got the top of stick. I got the ultimate platform, the UP
So you did. You got the
top of
flat
stick.
UP. Yeah.
Yep. Then
You'll be happy with that. That's a platform and a stick in one. So,
yeah, that's what my buddy has. The one that's angled ties it,
uh-huh.
and he's like, dude, he's like, I like it. He said they didn't have the flat one when I ordered mine,
Right.
and he's like, they have the flat one now, and I was like, okay, and I was like, I'm gonna be standing and everything else, so the flat would be better. And I'll probably end up buying a set of rings like you talked about hunting at a later date. I just I went to ordering all this, and I'm like,
Hey, this is, I will say this now for anybody listening. This is not the cheapest method for hunting. It is not. You're not going to get cheaper than a $59 hang on still stand from,
Walmart,
Academy or wherever.
Academy,
Yeah.
Walmart, yeah,
Yeah.
and
You're not going to, but this is probably the most versatile hunting system there is. And, that one stick platform that you did, it's
yeah,
funny you mentioned the angled versus the straight because
yeah,
there's some platforms on the market now that have that angle to keep you like 25, 30 degrees out when you're leaning.
hmm
But in my experience, if you wear a boot with a good hard shank on the bottom, like
hmm
even, I use a lot of rubber boots, but I typically deal with like the snake viper type. And I like a steel shank or at least a rigid shank. And if you're wearing a good shank boot, even leaning out on the edge of that platform, it's not that bad. And if you need to take it off, sit, put your knees to the tree, sit down. Personally, I'm more of a sitter. I like flat, when I'm on platforms, flat platforms, because I don't lean out all day like that anyway.
hmm
I'm typically knee pads to the tree, nice, 90 degree where my knees are. And I'm sitting like full scale, arm around the rope,
That's
head
what
down, waiting on something.
that's what I laughed at Ty. He's like the most important thing. Like I think he even says. I know he told us this before we were video, but I think he says in the video, he's like the most important thing, knee pads. He's like that way. He's like, and I've laughed at him because I was like, really, dude, that's your biggest thing. Like he's like, yeah. He's like, you sit there with your knees in a tree and see how much that bark goes to hurt. And he's like, the knee pads are great. I'm like, that was your biggest investment, like your most important. He's like, yeah. I was like, all
Man,
right then.
it's night or day. Like if you really like the camouflage or the neutral patterns, there's some great companies out there that make them. Me and my wife, we went with they're like a military style knee pad made by 511 Tactical of all places. They call it the gel EXO or something like that. And
Mhm.
it's got a harder outer shell and it's got gel pad foam on the inside. And it's great until you get to a really small tree. Like I've hunted some trees that are legit like this big around and like they sway in the wind and you sway with them.
Oh, I got a lock on in a tree like that on some public land in North Louisiana, and it's like it gets to moving, and you can only get about 10 feet up it, maybe 12, because it starts, and it's like, man, this is and that's what one reason like going to like I said, I'm going full saddle this year because I hunt a lot of public, but it was like you get to you're mobile. Obviously, you can move around a lot more on public, but it's like you're not as limited where you can go with that setup.
Or the type of trees.
All the type of
That's something
trees,
else.
and
Fork
because
trees work great.
well, that's what I said. It's like you got a climbing stand. You wander around. You better find your tree the day before, instead of in the dark. The next morning. In the morning hunt. So it's like, but it's like you wander around and find a tree. You finally find one you can get in. That doesn't mean that you're right where you need to be because
Right.
you've had to find something, or you got to open stand there and pick the stand up above your head to hook it on the tree because the base of the tree is so big. Then you get like 10 or 12 feet up the tree, and then you're like holding the bottom up with your feet, like undoing it and tightening it up because it's too loose because the tree done got smaller. And it's like, I don't know about all this, man. It's like we've been doing this all our life since like this is really not that safe. Like, it's like, and it's like I started like I use the lock-ons, and I'm like, I got to watch some bunch of stuff on the saddles. I'm like, man, this is great. Like, how have I not known about this? Like, like, and one of my buddies, I was talking to him last night, and Steven's like, yeah, I hunted a saddle all last year, and I'm like, you have a saddle? He's like, yeah. I'm like, you never told me. He's like, oh, he has the Hawk Helium too.
Mhm.
And I laughed. I said,
The hammock. Yeah.
yeah, but the hammock. I said, where did you get that? He said, oh, the only reason I got one, Academy had them on clearance because they quit selling them. I bought mine for $100. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
$199 for a whole kit. Yeah.
but he got it on clearance for like $100 because they. And I'm like, no wonder you bought one. Like, and he's like, dude, I love it. And I'm like, all right, like, he is not one because he was always like a lock on and like wolf stuff, like, and lock-ons and everything. I thought he still hunted lock-ons and carried his sticks and everything. And he said, now he carries 4 sticks. And I'm like, dude, look at the one stick setup. And he's like, I'm not familiar with it. I'm like, dude, it's pretty legit. Like, it's pretty simple. And his brother-in-law does, no, his not his brother-in-law, his best friend does electrical work and everything, so he's always on poles and everything. So he climbs more like you and doing, because he's always around. He's done a lot more rigging and stuff than like you have, than your average person. So he's like, nah, he does like you. And so it's like, but yeah, I was like, yeah, Steven, like, you've been hunting one for how long and you never told me? He's like, well, I mean, I got it last year at the beginning of the year. He's like, I love it. I'm like, well, yeah. I was like, I'm gonna switch to one this year for sure, because it's like, like we were saying, like, you go in somewhere, you don't have to look around and find a tree. You can just,
if I find sign, that's, you know what I mean? Like, if I find
you don't
hot
have to keep.
sign, I don't have to look for the right tree. I just need a tree in that general area. That's nice. Fork trees, like, see where we are here in Florida, like anywhere central through northeast Florida, you got 2 types of setups. You've either got the old timber where, a bunch of the paper mill companies had their, and then every one of the trees are 7 to 9 years old and they're about basketball size or smaller, and they're straight up pines, just rows and rows of pines. Or you've got thick woods like palm hammock, pine hammock, oaks, live oaks mixed with white oaks, and it's just, and then there'll be some hickories thrown in, and they're all fighting for the sunlight. So the canopy is a lot. It's different. Like, I can go up north and I can find trees all day in places that it's just like the selection is beautiful. You get down here and 15 foot, you go any higher, you may not have any he may not have any shooting lanes. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've picked a tree and got up it and then figured out, man, this ain't got very good shooting lanes, so I need to switch, because we have rules about cutting down tree limbs. And I'm not saying that they catch you every time, but I'm saying I don't want to be caught breaking the rules. So I'd rather switch a tree than start sawing on limbs and getting in trouble. It's funny that you said what you said there with the one sticking too. Is it's kind of really caught on, I'd say, in the last year and a half. Like, there's a bunch of videos on it and stuff. My only quarrel, and I've done one sticking once or twice. My only quarrel with the one stick was the amount of slack it allows in your tether. So like, you put the stick down, you climb up the aiders, and then you're above your tether spot. So I tell guys this, when you do that, be mindful of your tether, or if you can, learn to use your linesman belt while you're climbing. It's not easy, but you want some tension to help make sure that if something was, heaven forbid, to cut out a standoff bend, something happened, that you're caught. You don't want to go down the tree. Nobody wants to have a 2 or 3 foot fall, because it hurts. It's not great.
Last year, like, you talk like 2 or 3 foot. Last year I was coming down with my climber, the bottom twisted. I get it straight, and like, I thought I had my rope tied short enough, the 2 ropes between them. Apparently my rope was a little long and it slid after I get it straight from twisted. So I'm hanging on to the top and I can't reach it with my feet. And I'm looking with my lights in the dark. I'm like, trying to judge. I'm like, okay, it's like a foot lower than I can reach. I'll just drop down to it. Well, it was at an angle. And when I dropped down, it bounced me out like a trampoline. Like, boom, like, and I land flat on my back in like a briar patch. Knocks the wind out of me. And I'm just kind of like laying there. My stand's like 4 feet off the ground, the bottom. So I'm laying there. I'm like, knocks the wind out of me. I'm like, ugh. Then I'm like, I'm hurting. And my cousin, he's hunting like a couple hundred yards from me. He's walking out, sees my light go up in the air flying. He's like, what? So he comes, he's like, you all right? I'm like, no. Like, goes, I can't hardly breathe. He gets there and he looks at my stand and I'm getting up. He's like, what did you do? And I'm like, well, it slipped. I got it straight. I said, and I went to drop down to it. I said, and it had that slack in it. So it just, and I was like, dude, I don't know how I cleared my head from the top one to shoot out of it. Like, and it was like, I was like, it ejected me like a fighter jet, just like you hit that button. Like I went flying. I'm like, and it's like, and I think about that. I'm like, and I was literally 4 foot off the ground. And that was enough to like,
Oh yeah.
like,
Oh yeah. So, I've only, like I told you, we were talking about my neck and saddles not bothering it and stuff. I can sit there all day. Like I said, I can lean my head in the ropes and stuff.
Mhm.
And, but I have, they say 1 in 3 people that hunt from elevation will suffer some form of a drop or fall. I mean, that's statistics. So you might as well accept the fact that you got a pretty good shot at some point of having
you're gonna have it happen.
Something happen. So with me, what happened was, and it's kind of the reason I don't really like climbing sticks, is I got a brand new pair of climbing sticks. I'm not going to say the brand. I don't want to throw anybody under, but I got a brand new pair of climbing sticks and I set them to the tree for a hunt. And I was probably about 6 weeks out of my surgery and I wasn't even probably cleared by the
You
doctor.
shouldn't even, yeah.
And, but you only get a couple quotas here in Florida. Like we have a quota system. It's really hard to get on. And I got a quota for one that was close and I wanted to hunt it. So I go out and I set these climbing sticks. They've only been used like 2 or 3 times. I set them. I go up the tree. I hang a platform. I got my saddle. Everything's great. I sat there all day or half the day. I come down around 10:30, 11 o'clock. Ain't seen nothing so far. So I come down, I go to lunch, but I leave my setup because there's a lot of fresh sign there. And I'm thinking I don't know, because I didn't scout this area. I don't know if they're coming in day or
Morning
night.
or evening, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back and hunt that evening too. Same spot. Left all my stuff set up. Everything's great. Went to lunch, come back from lunch. I climbed the same set of sticks. Everything's fine. I'm on my platform. Here we go. 30 minutes after dark. Time to come down. The only thing I saw was a pig. So I'm coming down. I set my platform. I hook it on the back of my saddle. I climb off my first step onto my second step. I'm taking my step down. And as I hook it on my back molly loop, and I have my linesman rope the way you're supposed to. You want your linesman rope over your waist, preferably closer to your chest and height. And you want your hips kind of leaned out from the tree. So it's always tension. That way, if something happens and you fall, you don't just drop straight down the tree. It swings you in, it pinches you. And then it's up to you whether you can start falling from there or whether you climb back up. What you want to do is basically there's a right way and a wrong way to fall in a linesman rope. People don't understand that. But if you keep your hips, your hands pushed against the tree and your hips out, as long as you're tensioned, you can actually walk back up and regain your footing. And so that's what I was working on doing. But anyway, the point is I was up on the stick, had my linesman rope up, and the standoff on the stick bent. And when it bent, I'm talking, it does this, the whole stick just kicks over. So all of a sudden, my nice firm feet that have been up and down this stick 3 or 4 times today, there's nothing there. So I make my little drop, 19, 20 inches. The linesman rope caught me, and I was, that was one of them puckering experiences.
Oh, yeah.
Where, it was like, I don't want to do that. That's not good. And, it jarred a little bit, but it wasn't bad. I'm not going to overplay the situation, but it could have been a lot worse if I wasn't using my system properly. And a fall never happens. Like I've seen videos, people did like falling in a saddle and they're like jumping upside down and pretending to kick and doing silly things. And it's like, but that's not how a fall occurs. A fall is never, okay, I'm anticipating it, let me get ready and go. A fall is, you don't know, you go to step down and all of a sudden something happens. It kicks out, the strap breaks. It's never when you expect it. So tension is probably, like with saddles, I'll tell people this, it is probably the safest method to hunt. Honestly, it is, as long as you use your system right. If you're using your system right, the only thing that can happen to you is catastrophic failure, and that shouldn't happen. That shouldn't. Your ropes should be checked, inspected. They should be strong enough. Your saddle should be, you know, tested, certified, and it should be strong enough. And if it is, you know, you don't have to worry about it.
That's a question I have. Like, I know with, you know, your regular 5-point harness, every so
Mhm.
often you're supposed to replace one. You know, just
Yes.
replace it. Paddles.
So the answer to your question here, because I have to do the right thing, is yes. The way it's going to be written, I'm assuming will be somewhere around 4 or 5 years, just like the harnesses. They say, but that's because of what they call material
Yeah.
degradation. So the longer that the stuff's out in the sun, it gets wet, it gets hot, dry, whatever, the threads will weaken, the material will weaken, and you always want a, you know, what we call 10-to-1 support factor. You want the maximum force that your body weighs times 10 to that strength. So we put, I believe, 4 or 5 years on ours, but I'm not going to tell you that I haven't hunted out of one that's more than 4 years old either. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I understand. I
So
mean, in that the industry using safety harnesses and everything, you get one you like, you will wear it until, you know, people talk about, you know, they are all the same. They're not. Like, it fits a certain way, like you were saying, like, you know, you just,
everybody's body is so different, man.
yep.
Like your height to your hip ratio, how wide
Mhm.
you may or may not be, and then what you like. Like your buddy was talking. Some guys really enjoy leaning out from the tree,
Mhm.
and I know some that they don't sit down at all. And then my friend Mike that I hunt with a lot, he loves to lean. Like, that is a leaning joker. He has knee pads. He
Mhm.
has knee pads, and he has our original, which is a great sitting saddle. Like, when you sit in it, it cups under. It's great. He just likes leaning. Something about leaning for him is more comfortable. He does. I mean, we went on a hunt. He went with me to St. Vincent Island out here in the Panhandle of Florida, and it's a national wildlife refuge island, and they actually have sandbar deer, which is an Asian elk, on it. Oh yeah, it's amazing. But we were on there, and we were in the same tree for probably 13 hours in one day, and he leaned, I promise you, 11 of that 13 hours. Me, I probably sat 9.5 of that 13 hours. That's how different people are, and all that it affects everything. But like you said, they're not all the same, and there are ways to make most to any saddle comfortable. There you can play with your tether height. You can play with the length that you do, and then if they have the adjustments on the bridge loops, you can move your pressure settings, and you can make anything comfortable for a couple hours.
Well, I was seeing the other day, I think it was with y'all's it said open bridge or whatever. Like,
Mhm.
you want to go into, like, you know, explain what that's related to?
Yeah, so an open bridge system is, it just means you don't have to step through your, so when you put a saddle on, you know, your seat belt or your rigger's belt, it opens up, your leg straps open up. Your bridge is the only thing on most saddles that doesn't open. And the reason is simple. It adds weight, and it adds a carabiner. To call it, have an open bridge, you need a carabiner in
Mm-hmm.
your system. And some guys don't like the potential for metal on metal contact, but some guys do. I got on the forum one day, and I get some great ideas off of guys on Saddle Hunter forum, and I'm on there, and they're having they're talking about what open bridge they like and how people are making them. And every single open bridge that I'm seeing is they're putting a carabiner between the prusik on the side. So where your adjuster is, they have a carabiner, and it's tied off on this side, and you just pull it. And then if you want to open it, like you do your waist belt, you unhook the carabiner, and then you don't have to step through the bridge. Well, the guys were talking about that. My problem with that is when you hook the carabiner on that, loop, what you're really doing is there's no way to cinch that. The carabiner slides freely on the bridge loop. So what we did was we added an additional piece of continuous loop to the other side. And we basically, to shorten the distance so you can roll through your carabiner easier, we put the carabiner on the opposite side hand. So it opens opposite of the rest of your saddle. So like if you're right-handed, it'll open from the left side, but your right side is still your adjuster. And what that does is that brings an additional loop off the other side. And then the other thing it does is it still allows the bridge to adjust up and down on the bridge loops and cinch because of the continuous loop. So I used available real estate and design. It's different. There's not another one in the industry that's like our open bridge. It's all am steel. It's got the one continuous loop, but the continuous loop does not go to your main bridge component. It hooks with the carabiner. So it holds your position and then the carabiner holds to it. And we always put it on the open real estate side. So we just call it an open bridge. It's just a fancy way of saying if you don't want to step through your bridge to put your saddle on, you can get that for a few extra. We own literally the cost of the continuous loop and the carabiner. It's like 15 extra bucks.
Yeah, I think it was like 15, which isn't bad at all. And it's like it's just personal preference, I guess. What guys
Yes.
want.
So some guys like it. Me personally, I'm just an old school regular closed bridge guy. But I don't step through it. I tell people this, that we call it the pro tip. You take the bridge and put it over your shoulders the way a woman puts a purse on real quick, and then you just grab your waist belt and connect it. You do that, you never have to step through your rope with muddy boots and worry about all that. But
Okay.
Some guys have bad shoulders and they can't do that. So
yeah, it's the more you use it, the more little tips and tricks that you're going to get that work for you. It's like any other piece of equipment that's, you're going to find little personal tweaks and preferences for it. And so, I mean, it's a lot to take in because that's what we were talking about the other day when I was texting. I'm like, whoa, and it's like, that's why, I wanted you to come on and talk about it because it's like, it's a firsthand experience from somebody that messes with them on a daily basis and can answer any questions. Because it's like you can watch all the YouTube videos you want, you can read all you want, but not being able to ask somebody the questions that you because you could you watch the video, you got questions, and it's like I was like, man, I think I've hit a bunch of the questions that people would be asking. It's like because that was my biggest thing, like knowing you brought that up without me asking the industry spec, whether there's not one, but y'all do y'all's, that way. That's big because there's no, that all the data's not there. So that's really big. Then wanting to know what the replacement period was on them because there's nothing that nobody ever talks about that with them, but it's like, it's no different than any other fallen apparatus, there's gotta be a time frame. Then talking about the stitching pattern, it's so many little things that go into it that make it safe. And that's what I've told my wife. I'm like, look, I showed her some stuff. I was like, this is way safer than anything I've been doing. It's like, as soon as you walk to the tree, you're tied to it. You're hooked to the tree while you're standing on the ground. You're hooked from every step you make, you're still hooked to the tree. So if you slip, you got an opportunity, no matter if it's 20 feet or 6 inches, you're hooked. And I was like, that's a big difference. I was like, like I said earlier, I'm 37. It's not that, not that I'm old in any way, but it's like, you don't get enough falls. You don't get enough falls.
Home to.
Yep. Those sudden stops.
Yeah.
Different now. And it's like, like we talked about earlier, like one of the places I hunt, it's a 2-mile walk to where I go, where on my truck, where we have to park our trucks at the gate, and it's public land. It's walk trails only, or take a bicycle, and it's 2 miles to where I go in the woods at, down these trails and everything else. And it's like carrying a stand back there is killer. And then it's like hunting open clear cuts, like growing up clear that where they've cut it 2 or 3 years ago and starting, and you go back to the big tree line, on a creek or something. You got that clear. having going in with, like you said, a saddles, you're looking, depends on which way you climb, 4 to 8 pounds total gear, you know.
Y- Yeah, so with me, when me and you were talking, we were talking about, Louisiana and Florida. I tell people this all the time. The struggles here are real because you're going to go through real swamps. You're going to go through real creeks. We don't have the best road systems in public lands. And you're going through some thick, nasty stuff. We're warm year round. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it was 80 degrees the other day. You know what I mean? Like it's 78 today.
Yeah,
And
I think we were 72 today, so it wasn't too bad.
my New Year's Day, it's pretty regular to see 81 degrees.
Hmm.
So, we're in deer season and it's 80, 90 degrees outside.
Hmm.
Who wants to carry 25, 30 pounds for miles and miles walking around in that kind of, and it's, so for me, I can wear it in like that. That's a positive. I wear mine in, it stays put, it wears comfortably. Um, my whole, like what I pack with me fits in my dump pouches. Like I carry a thermocell, that's a must.
Yeah.
If you're hunting in the South, that is a
It's not.
must. And I carry usually one little grunter or a bleep, depending on if it's rut or not. I carry a couple of S beaners from Home Depot, just because when I hang my strap around the tree, I like to hang my bow and my gear off of the strap. And then on my other dump pouch, I keep my linesman rope, my tether, and usually I'll keep like an extra Prusik or something like that, just in case, something happens. Cause I mean, right now, ropeman ones and mechanicals are a big deal. People love them. They use them. I've used them. But I still hunt off of a friction hitch, like mechanical. Mechanicals they're not strong, period. And that's more metal on metal contact potential. So I try to eliminate as much metal on metal as I can. So yeah, I'll still hunt off a friction hitch, and I usually keep an extra one because if I notice mine's worn, or if something does, you fall, or you have an emergency and you have to rappel down on a couple friction hitches, it's nice to have backups. So I keep all that stuff. I think all of that together was like 2 pounds, including the dump pouch. And then my saddle was less than 2 pounds. And then my climbing method is about 4. So when I go out in the woods, I've got 4 pounds, 8 pounds of gear. Plus if I take a platform and my bow. So the heaviest I will ever walk, and this is fully everything, bow included, is 15 pounds. That's the heaviest I will ever be in the woods at. Most times it's sub 11. Like usually I don't carry a platform. I got a ring of steps. If I'm SRT and I'm looking at less than 11 pounds. So you got that. You nailed safety. If used correctly, it's impossible to fall, minus catastrophic failure, which shouldn't occur. And everything that we sell, I have manufactured from dependable companies. Like our tethers and linesman ropes are 10 millimeter, because I went with 9 first. 9 millimeter is small, kind of like how everybody's doing 8 millimeter Oplux.
Mhm.
But I had them test the sawn eye because I wanted to know. I don't want to rate my tether on the tether. I want to know at the eye. The eye is the weakest spot on your tether. If you have a knot or something, that's your weak point. So a sawn eye or a spliced eye is the weakest spot on that tether. I want to know what the break strength is to that. And I told them I wanted a minimum of 5,000 pounds breaking strength. That's industry standard for a lot of other things. I want it for this.
Mhm.
And when they tested the 9 millimeter, they couldn't get it to hold above about 4650, which is stronger than Oplux at the sawn eye. An Oplux rope with a sawn eye is not as strong. So the 9 millimeter, they couldn't get it to my 5,000. So we went with 10.
Mhm.
And 10 millimeters is a little bit bigger. It's not as big as like the Samson Predator ropes or the 11 millimeter ropes that some of us are making.
Yeah.
But so it folds down smaller than that and it's lighter. But by going with that 10 millimeter Pro Tack, not only did I get over 5,000 pounds at the eye, but I also got something it's compatible with every single mechanical ascender. You don't have to use the Kong. You can use the Ropeman one. And on top of that, it is a low elongation rope, not a static rope. So if you do have a fall, it doesn't stretch like dynamic rope, but it stretches more than a standard static rope. So if you do fall, it'll absorb more of the force than a standard rope. So, I mean, everything when I designed it, I went carefully to figure out what was the best median. I didn't want, you don't want a tether that stretches real long,
Yeah.
because then you end up too far from the tree. You don't, plus the dynamic rope wears out quicker. You don't want, your saddle to be coming up on your hips, and you don't want it falling open when you walk if you have a pleat, so we did what we could to eliminate those issues, to the best of our ability. And I'm happy with what we've got. And I think that other people will too. And the thing is, like you said, there's a lot of companies out now. Like, there's a lot of opportunity, and I'm not the guy that is going to hype market you into believing you need to buy mine. Yeah. I'm not going to run 6 million advertisements, and it's not who I am as a person. So I'll never get rich. I understand that. My goals, I pay my bills on my 9 to 5. My goal is just to make a quality, safe product that I know people can use. So with that said, I purchase other saddles from other companies, and people that have been to any of our live events know that. I purchase them from Trophy Line. There's a great company called Custom Gear Modifications. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great companies, and I purchased their stuff out of my pocket because when I go to these events, I like saddle hunting, period. Like, I love hunting, and I think saddle hunting is the best way to hunt. And because of that, I don't just take my stuff. I take their stuff too, and I let people try it. I don't tell them, you got to buy mine or you need to buy this. I let them try, because maybe I don't make something you like. Maybe mine's not right for your body type, but I promise you that there's enough other options. You should be able to find one that is right for your body type. So, we do that. We take, products from Cruiser, we take products from other, and we let them try them too, with the idea that they should find what they like, not just what I sell. And like, I'm doing an expo next month. It's called the Florida Outdoor Expo, or some Expo Outdoor, and it's down in like West Palm Beach, April 22nd through the 24th. When we go down there, people will try other stuff, because I'm first and foremost, I'm a saddle hunter. I like saddles. That's, I didn't 20 years ago, but I do now. And, I tell guys that I bring people out to the house. I put them in the tree. If you buy one from me and you live within 2 or 3 hours and you want to see something, try something, I'm willing to meet you, somewhere, a park, something, and show you what I know and what I do to alleviate problems that people complain about with any kind of, there's always, if you sit for 10 hours on any kind of stand, you're going to feel it. You know what I mean? There's ways to alleviate it. And
it's like the old thing, you get bato butt. Like, it's, you sit there, it's gonna, like, something's got to give. You're gonna have to move.
And yes, you are. And what I like, with saddles, not only are you lighter, which is great, and in my opinion, safer, but you are also able to shoot 360 degrees around most trees. You do have an occasional one where it's leaning too far, or it might be too big around. But even then, if you got a good ring of steps, you can usually get around with a ring of steps and a linesman rope. So,
and that brings up a valid, thing. It's like, it gives you, like, everybody, when you're trying to hunt out of a climber, a lock on, a ladder stand, you're trying to find something to break your outline up. Like, you need, behind you and everything. And it's like, the saddle automatically gives it to you. You're using the tree.
The tree.
Yeah.
Yep. You're setting up on the back side of that tree, facing where you expect them to come, and looking down.
Yeah. And it's like, and I don't remember who it was. I was watching a video or listening to a podcast or something, and they was talking about it. It's like, you're just sitting there on this tree like this, and you're hanging out, like, in a ladder stand or lock on or whatever. You're this blob sitting on the side of it. That sticks out. You're hanging down the back of it. You don't really stick out as bad as you do, just like this big hump on it. And I'm like, I get that. Like, it's a different view. And it's like,
it's easier to conceal. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, I may lose some of your fans right here. I ain't going to lie to you. We have a thing called the Timber Pimp competition that they do on Saddle Hunter. And the idea is you go out and you don't wear camo.
Yeah.
They go out in like tie dye and
Huh?
hot pink and just crazy colors, no camo, and try to kill deer that way. You got a dude, I think he goes by like BC Hunter. He wears like the brightest blue, the one color deer can
Yeah.
see.
Everybody says don't wear blue.
Whole outfit is like this bright blue. It's just it's crazy. But that's how much confidence you can have if you're not moving. One, be still, and then two, like you said, your silhouette's automatically broke up because you should be keeping yourself between that deer and that tree. When they start to come out, you usually can hear them. Sometimes it's a herd of squirrel instead, but you can usually hear when they start to kind of come up. And try to keep that tree between you, and small movements, man. I mean, as long as people are making small incremental movements, you should be able to get a shot on the animal if he's within range. And you can hunt, like there's another misconception that it's a bow hunter only sport.
I was going to ask you that, like rifle hunting out of it, gun hunting out of it.
So you can do anything from tying the end of your tether into a little eye and using it through your gun to support you so that it holds it still. There are, you can use clips on a strap the same way they do to hang their bows. If you got a branch, you can use the branch as a brace.
You can prop it on. I've seen them prop on the side of the tree and use it.
On the side of the tree with your thumb under like a hole. Yes. And my wife hunts with her 243, and I've went to bows only. I have, I'm not going to lie, but she still, hunts with her rifle. I've got buddies that still hunt even with a shotgun. I got one that hunts with a shotgun with them, and they said they don't feel unstable shooting the rifle out of the tree. So
I was having that conversation with one of my other buddies the other day, and Brandon's like, man, if you get one, he's like, I don't know if I want one, but like I'll come over, we'll go somewhere, like he's like, come to the house and climb, then I'll give you my rifle. I want to see you shoot the rifle out of it. And then I make my decision if I want to hunt with one. And I'm like, really, dude? That's like, he's like, I mean, yeah, he's like, they're bow hunting only. I'm like, people gun hunt them, dude. Like, and he's like, that was, like you said, they got that misconception. That was him. He had this, that was a bow hunters only thing. And I'm like, no, dude, like,
I think a lot of that was like, was it Mr. Eberhart and some of them that are so successful at it?
I was going to ask you a question about him a while ago. Like, is it tether that makes the Eberhart saddle?
Yes.
That's a weird looking saddle to me. Like, it's like,
you can tell he was an old Anderson tree sling guy.
Yeah.
Because it's very Anderson tree sling-esque, like when I look at it. It was his personal design. So my understanding is that they worked with him, and this is what he hunted and how he does it. And I mean, you can't argue with the man's success. I mean, he's got like 50 something book bucks. Yeah. I'm from a state where it's only produced like 2 book bucks in its history, and he's got 50 on his wall. You can't argue with the man's success.
You can't argue with his success out of a saddle. Then it's like, you can't argue with Dan Infalt's success out of a lock-on.
Dude, Dan Infalt's probably my favorite guy. Like if I'm going to, I'm not a big social media guy. If you look on like my Facebook page from 2011 or 12, all the way up to about 2018 or 19, you won't see anything. And then if you go again, 2020, you probably won't see. I'm not a big social media guy. But in the last year and a half, I have gotten to, usually through recommendations on the forum, to listen to a lot of Dan Infalt stuff. And
I had Dan on, we recorded Monday night. I did with Dan.
Oh, that's awesome.
Dude, it was, I caught like, it was kind of like with these weird things. Some guys I know through Elevated Outdoors out of Pennsylvania, and they do duck calls and everything else. They got, like Quackhead duck call, duck calls is one of them. I talked to Jay. We've recorded a couple together, I think, and just like, and Jay and JT and them, and they're just cool guys. And we were at the end of the one, we'd shut everything down, and we're just talking through Zoom. And I was like, and we were talking about Dan Infalt, and Jay's like, oh, I know him. I can get him on. And I'm like, and I'm like, okay, Jay, like if you can pull that off, that'd be great.
Yeah, right. I'll send you a cake.
Like 2 hours later, Jay calls me. He's like, when can we record this? I'm like, whenever Dan says. I was like, we'll go Monday night. This is like this past Friday. I'm like, we'll go Monday night. So we're recording with Dan and everything. And Dan's like, yeah, he's like, like Jay reached out to me through social media. And I'm like, and he's like, I checked y'all out and like, I like what y'all are doing and what y'all are about and everything. So I was like, heck yeah, come on, man. And I'm like, so at the end of it, after Dan gets off and everything, I was like, Jay, he's like, I mean, I told you we were friends. I just didn't tell you it was on Facebook only. I'm like, really? I'm like, it don't matter, dude. You pulled it off. Like that was legit, But no, Dan was like, it was so cool because like the questions, and it's like we got on. I think it was like 8 o'clock, and it's like we didn't know. He didn't tell us how much time he had, and like you listen to some of Dan's interviews are short. They're like, so we didn't know what to expect. I think it's like an hour and 20, hour and 30 minutes, and like we had to like, hey man, we didn't take this one because we was like, it was great. Like I could just sit there and listen to him talk for hours because like he was just, and the little things he says, like you're thinking about it after he says it, you're like, well, that's common sense. I should have knew that. It's like, but it's so much that he does. It's just so, and but he does his beast sticks and the beast lock on and everything. And it's like, but he's got that down to like that whole setup's like 11 pounds or some crap. Like it is insanely light and everything. But it's like he is strictly a lock on guy, and Eberhardt's strictly and it's like, but it's like dude, I learned so much the other night just in that hour and 10 minutes from him, and I was like in awe that whole time. And like I was like, man, like it was really cool, and getting to talk to him and everything, and he was just like anything you asked, like he was just I was like, wow, like
yeah, he's a down to earth sounding dude. Like for me, the fun is like we're talking about Eberhardt versus him. Eberhardt does the like I think it's the scent lock, and he has this religious smell control program. Which okay, so up north it's colder, and I believe that it would probably work up there. But I'm telling you, down in Florida when it's 96 degrees, you ain't getting to the tree without sweating, and that stuff's not catching all of that. So I'm more on the in-fault side of scent control. Like he says, he will walk through beds to bump the bucks to areas he wants, and I'm like, I'm more of that guy. You're not going to fool the deer's nose. No. I can't fool my blue tick's nose. No. My blue tick, I can do everything. That dog will find me.
Well, it's like a guy I was that I listened to the other day. He was talking about it. He said, excuse me, there are two things. He's like, I'm more of an in-fault guy, like playing the winds, he's like, does scent control work to fool their nose? He's like, what I think it does, and he was just an average guy like us, but he's like, what I think it does is, say usually you're putting out like 20 particles. Well, that brings it down to like 10. So they actually think you're further away than what you really are. That's all it does. And he's like, it knocks it down to when they're smelling, it smells like you're further away than what you are because you're putting off less scent, but it's still there. And I'm like, he's like, it's not, you cannot control it completely. And it was like, and it's like, yeah, that makes sense. But it's like, I'm more of a wind guy because if the wind's not right, you're not gonna, and like you said, you're gonna break a sweat. Like youth weekend for us, and we have a place in North Louisiana, private property. Youth weekend is the second weekend of October. We went this year and I built my boys. My boys are 9 and 7. Built them a 4x8 box stand, insulated and everything. One little problem: insulation in 90 degrees.
It holds the heat.
Yeah. So we're in it. It's like 90 degrees. And I take this video and send it to my wife, and I'm laughing because like all three of us are sitting there in our boxers, like pouring sweat, and I'm like,
everywhere.
And I'm like, dude, like I appreciate y'all's effort, but like because then I was worried. I was like, man, I'm gonna burn them out on it because this is bad. And it's like and I was like, we're sitting there. I'm like, you want to go fishing? Like, yeah. So it was like we fished all youth weekend. It was like like it was just so hot. It was like. And that's why I told him that we were talking about deer season coming up. And I was like, look, if it's below 70 or below for youth weekend, we'll take y'all to y'all stand. If it's above that, then they're like, yeah, we'll wait till Christmas. I was thinking like Thanksgiving. They're like, nah, it'd be cold for Christmas. We'll do Christmas. I'm like,
dude, that's crazy.
You were talking about like saddle hunting, and you said your kids use it.
Yes. Yeah. Like
that's something I wanted to ask because like, there you don't see anybody talking about children using it. Everything you see is adults. So
well children, I think a lot of it is the the liability factor, but that children have done recreational tree climbing. There have been harnesses made
Mhm.
particularly for recreational tree climbing, and I see no, if it fits them, if you get one that fits them properly, and you're there to supervise them, I don't see an issue with it. I think in our liability standards, we don't say no kids. I think we say that no unsupervised kids, if I'm not mistaken. Um, because the idea is again, it's safe. You know, I wouldn't put my 10-year-old up there to do something that I didn't consider safe. And he practices in the yard year round at 6, 8 foot. Like I've got a privacy fence in the front yard and it's a little over 6 foot tall. My son will be up there 6, 8 foot in the sky shooting without me in the tree with him, you know, shooting the 3D targets we got, the pig and the deer and stuff.
Mhm.
And I encourage it. You know, he might only be shooting them 10 or 12 yards, but he's got to practice that because, and I make him do it all. I make him climb the tree by himself. I
Mhm.
make him set up his stuff by himself because when we go out hunting for real and he's 13, 14 years old, I'm not going to be able to set me up and him up. Even if we're in the same tree, he's going to have to set
That's
him up.
what, see, and that's what we were talking about that myself and Ty the other, no, it was Steven. We were talking about it. I was like, dude, I remember hunting wildlife managements using a climber and 11, 12 years old, carrying my climber in with my dad. And like, I had a heavy climber then, like, it was horrible, you know, and it's like carrying it there. You're talking like 97, 98. So climbers wasn't light, you know, take it in. All right, climb that tree there. Me put my, you know, I hook all my stand up because he'd make, you know, I'd practice. He'd wait till I got about where he felt I was comfortable, 12, 15 feet. You can see, yeah. All right, well, I'll see you later. And he'd go, you know, down and
20,
hunt.
30, 50 yards down. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
and I'm like, man, like this is, you know, it was like, and didn't have a harness, dude. I didn't like. I don't think I ever used a harness until I was like in my 20s. Like didn't
Yeah.
didn't know to because like we wasn't, and it's like, you know, and I probably shouldn't say this on the pod on like with people here, but it's like, you know, I'm being honest because it's like we wasn't, and
Yeah.
we wasn't taught that.
No.
Now it's like they make jackets with it built in it. You know, it's like, you know, it's like probably the first time we ever saw a harness was when we went to work in the field and they had one. You're like, you know, like, you
Man,
know,
I did the first one I ever got was I had bought a metal hang on
and it
in
came
my
with it.
20s and it came with it. Yeah, I was like probably like 25 or 26. I didn't know how to put it on. I
Yeah,
mean, as embarrassing as that is, like
yeah.
I had to go through the video and instruction thing to get it on because back then they were still releasing like you got a video
Yeah.
cassette with them, and it was neat. But yeah, it was the same way, man. We had access to some private property. My dad actually built like wooden platforms that you would hunt off of.
Yeah.
And first kind of I guess fall experience I ever had was I was probably 12 and I had shot my first animal and was super excited and in a rush to get down the stand, you know. And
Yeah.
about I don't know 12 between 8 and 12 feet high, and I missed a step on one of the little wooden ladder steps and slipped and busted my butt. Something it knocked the wind out of me. Pretty sure it might have been my first concussion. I don't know, but you know that was how it was.
That was the norm, you know, and
And
it's
man,
like,
I've got kids, you know, and I want to come home to my kids. You
mm-hmm.
know, I love hunting. Like hunting is like I'm looking at your background right now, the two deer sparring right there, and I'm just like, oh, that's so great. You know,
I don't know
I
if you
love
can see it. They got like under the deer. There's a bow hunter with his bow pulled back.
I do see that
Yeah,
over under the one. Yeah, that's phenomenal. So it's like, you know, just seeing stuff like that gets me riled up and wanting to go. Talking about it makes me want to go. But, you know, there is the shift to be safe. And then there's also, like we're talking about misconceptions. You brought up private land. I hear a lot of guys, so I got private land, so why would I want to saddle? And I'm like, fair. Okay, that's fair because you could go and you can leave your climber at this tree, or you can put a ladder stand here or a blind there. But how
the
many are
deer
you
know
buying?
that.
How many are you buying though? You're buying because you're not hunting the same feeder to the same wind, or you're not successful. I mean, you know, the wind switches. You may have multiple feeders. Say you got a 200-300 acre plot that you're on. You might have 5 feeders. You might have 4 different trees you hunt on each wind, you know, depending on what direction the wind's coming from. This one setup, because it's so light and so mobile, can literally replace all of that. And that's what I tell, even like I'll go hunt on private land. I do. But when I go, I still don't take a climber or use one of theirs. I still use the saddle just because it allows me to switch trees if I need to. It allows me that one setup covers buying 4 or 5 different climbers and ladder stands. So
you go out to like my shop and it's like you go to this section of stands and it's like my wife looks at it. She said, "Do you need all these?" And I'm like, "Yeah, like But now switching this, I'm like, I told her the other day, I was like, I can switch this. I don't really need all these because it's like, yeah, I'll keep my old man because it's like I said, it's like 19 pounds. I can still use it in some places that I'll want to use it.
Yeah.
And it's like, I've got 5 or 6 lock-ons. I've got 5 or 6 ladder stands. I think I got like 8 climbers because like every other year I got another climber. And it's like I have, I have enough stands to like you look like a hunting club and you're by yourself. Like look like if I load them all out, I got to put them on the trailer. They're not fitting in the truck. Like it is, and it's like I laugh because it's like she's like, "How do you have all this?" I'm like, "Found this on sale or bought this because I was hunting here and I could, I was like, I've always used my climbers going to public land." I said, and a lot of times I wouldn't take my good, like I had the, like depends on what public land I was hunting, which climber I took because I was like, if I wanted to leave it overnight, even because you can leave it in an hunting position, all that, I was like,
but do you want it stolen?
I didn't leave a good one. I was like, I left one so heavy that they wouldn't steal it.
They don't want to take it. Yeah.
And she laughed, and I'm like, that's just, she's like, so you can, I was like, oh yeah, I can get rid of a lot of stuff. Then I was like, but knowing the type of person I am, I'll probably have like 2 saddles because it's just, I'm one of those that like, I'll end up buying a second one just because how I am. It's like, she's like, that's the only thing I see you doing that will like, what the heck, man? And I'm like, yeah. I was like, I admit it. I know I have a problem. I know I'll end up doing it. But it's like, that was it's like you said though, like you said, your son, and I got sidetracked there, but your son, like he's safe. He's automatically tied off, and it's something that we were never taught, and that's something I want to instill in my kids with it. And it's like, because that's what I told my wife. I was like, switch this, and like I'm gonna teach them. Like they're 9 and 7. It's like, yeah, I'm not gonna teach. Obviously, I'm not gonna start teaching them next week. I was like, but when they get ready to start hunting with me, whether it's even when we're hunting on our private land, because like my wife's family has 400 acres just out of Shreveport, right at 400 acres. It's like 386 or something. And it's like, we have our box stand on it. And it's like, but it's like if they want to hunt somewhere other than the box stand, because right now, yeah, I can keep both of them together and it's cool. They're okay with it. But it's like when
they're 14, yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, and it's like I laughed at them because like I have the 2 feeders set up out like that. And they're like, and when they sit there standing, they're like, all right, the right feeder's mine, the little feeder's yours. I'm like, sweet. They know it. Like, they agree. And I laughed because like, they was both like that. And then my youngest one looks at his brother. He's like, and they're Trapper and Hunter. Oldest one's Trapper, youngest one's Hunter. Hunter looks at Trapper and he's like, if it's a buck, look, we both shooting. I was like, why are y'all both shooting? He said, that way we both get our first buck. I'm like,
or if one misses, the other don't.
And I'm like, that way, I was like, how we explain one hole? They was like, well, one of us hit it, and then we're going to both say we hit it. I'm like, because we won't know who did it. I'm like, fair enough. But that's just they're 9 and 7. They're okay doing it. And they get a little older, and it's like, and then it's like, I feel like you said, like, even a ladder stand. Like you go up a ladder stand, you're never attached to anything.
Not unless you put one of them HSS life whatever ropes that the squirrel might chew up in like a week.
Yeah, and who does that? And it's like that's and that's what main reason I wanted to get you on here like we did. And I mean, I know we've been going, and I apologize. It's
Oh, I got nothing but time, brother.
It's like you want to have that safe setup, and you want to have something, and it's like a big thing is like you said with those, they're safe from Jump Street. You're hooked. It's if you do it right, then you have nothing.
That's it.
Nothing really to worry about.
If you're doing it right, you're safe. And then, man, like you talked about all the climbers, there's so much support for it now too. Like there's a company out, like you're talking about climbers, there's a company out now that makes a climber style platform, and it's under 4 pounds. Like it's called Barren Ridge, and it is it folds up. They got it, instead of using the old school bolting and welding system, they actually have little cotter pins, and you can pull the cotter pins off and fold it down, put it in your backpack. And then when you get out there, you can unfold this thing, pop the pins in and the string, the size you want, and climb. It's a climbing platform. You stand on this little 14 by 14 platform, and you hook your saddle on. And instead of using the hand climber and pushing up, you sit in your saddle, and the same thing. You just bring your foot up, stand down, stand up on it, adjust your tether, sit back down, and you climb up the tree like that. I mean, there's so many.
That's pretty cool. Like, I didn't know that. And that,
It's taking, like, yeah, I mean, that's a
it's taking
4 pound
its whole
climbing
own.
slash. Yeah. Like it really, it's more than a niche. Like years ago when I started, it was a niche, and there were only like, I think 4, maybe 5 actual, I think 5 commercial, if you would, saddle companies out. And now there's a ton of them, and there's even more platforms and lightweight sticks. There's multiple companies now making ring of steps. Like there's so much support for it that you can find a setup that works for pretty much anyone.
See, and that was like getting to see the one stick setup with Ty. I'm like, dude, I like that, because I'd looked at doing it with the, getting 4 sticks carrying, and then it's like, then using an aider between them to get a little higher. But it's like, I was like you, like, my stick twisting. Like, I've never had it happen, but that was my, you got 3 or 4, you got 4 sticks, you got more chances of a stick doing what happened to you. It's like, yeah, you could still have it happen with a 1 stick, but there's 1 stick. Like, it's, and it's like, and it's less to carry, less to get, hung up on stuff. And it was like, I don't remember the exact weight. Like, the 1 stick setup's not that heavy either. And it's like, you're looking at, probably 10 to 11 pounds of, if that, with the 1 stick and
if you're using that as your platform, yeah, you're talking about maybe 2 pounds for a saddle. I think that 1 stick setup is 5 pounds roughly.
I was going to say 4.3 or 5.3. I don't remember.
Yeah, I think it's between 4 and 5 pounds, depending on if you got the boat cam cleat set up, or if you're using the ultimate attach method or whatever
it's
they call it.
The roller lock, and you bring the rope around and stick it through the lock.
Yeah, that's the boat cam cleat. Yeah, that's a phenomenal setup. It's very fast too. Like,
Yeah,
you legit pull it through and it tightens, and then when you're done, you just pull it out. That's, and that adds a little bit of weight, but you're still, like I said, you're talking 2 pounds plus, maybe you take 2 or 3 pounds of gear, your 5 pound thing, and then your bow weight or your gun weight. That's it. That's all you're going to go out with. And you with Dan, you can't go wrong with Dano's stuff. I'm not even gonna lie to you. That Eastern Wood stuff, I'm telling you, best standoffs on the market. Like, so that is a phenomenal first platform setup. Like, it is.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's you get what you pay for. That's what I tell you.
Exactly. And I'm not, and it's like, I looked at it, I ran all my numbers, and I'm like, you know what? I've spent way more than this on way worse ideas.
And then add it, like, if you add a 4 stick setup of even the economical sticks, they're like $140.
Yeah,
you get 140, but you still need a platform. You're going to spend another 140 there. You might as well just vouch for the one. It makes sense, because it's all going to come out.
Then you got to keep up with all that. Like, it's 1. Like, like you get 4. It's, you gotta. And it's like, because I watched one, I don't remember who it was, a video he did on climbing with a 4 sticks and a aider. And he had a certain order he put all his stuff in, because, it was set up a certain way. And it's like, he may have just been OCD. I don't know. But, it's like, looking at it, it's like, he had this, he had that. And it's like, then you get so high, and it's like, is it really? And it's like, some of the other guys that, I know that talk about, even with their lock-ons, they'll run like 5 sticks. And it's like, so yeah, you can get, and then, they might run an aider on that. And it's like, my biggest concern is, you got 18, it depends on the stick, 18 inches. Let's just go with a 18-inch stick. You better be carrying it straight up and down, because if it's, sideways, you're hanging on everything. And it's like, you're doing this to eliminate pound weight and hang up, like going through. But a lot of these guys, I don't think hunt the like deal with the crap that we deal with being in Florida and South Carolina.
Louisiana,
Yeah,
South Georgia. Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think they deal with that. So it's like, you look at that and you're like, well, I could see how that would work there, but not here. And that's why I like, it's talking like that's one reason why I was like, man, he's from Florida. Like he hunts some crap like I do. Like I want to talk to him about saddles because it's like it's some crap here that just you're either dealing with crap or you're dealing with pine plantation and everything's road.
Road.
It's like
Yeah.
yeah, so it's like and you're either then you walk around and then it depends on the age. They're either going to be the base is huge, so putting a then so you got to reach up and put your climber.
Right.
Then
Or
they
they're this big around,
yeah
and yeah,
yeah
you're worried
and it's like,
about how
yep
high you go.
yep and that's the thing. And it's like I was like, man, he deals with a lot of the same stuff I deal with being from the South and like and then and like I said, a couple of my buddies run them, but it's like I said, Ty did great on the video we put out on YouTube with what he does and his and hey, I use this and this is why. And but it's like, he's no different than me. Like he uses the product. He doesn't know the background like, like what goes into making a good product and knowing having like being able to ask the questions and somebody that deals with it all the time just, and that's what we wanted to be able to let, like people hear about what it is because it's safe right off the bat. It's less weight. And if you get technical about it, you're carrying less weight. So like you said, your back and if you have back or neck issues, it makes a total difference because you're not carrying an extra 10 to I think a Summit Viper is 23 pounds. Throw that on your back. And it's like I'll carry for an all day sit. A lot of times I'm carrying a backpack. So I've got I might have extra clothes in it. I might have, I might have 15, 20 pounds in a backpack. Then I throw a climber on with that. I got a backpack hanging off my chest, a climber hanging off my back. I'm 40, 45 pounds of gear.
And you're still carrying your bow and your gun.
Oh, or gun, yeah. And it's like, I'm sitting here between 45 and 50 pounds. You start walking with that, it gets old real quick. And it's like, and which leads me to another question. Clothing. Like, do you go in and put it like, well, obviously you seldom need extra clothing probably, like you probably like me, you have to take more off than put back on, but
Oh man. So for fun here, there's not a lot of what I would call saddle specific clothing. There is one brand called Broadside Camo that makes their way they do their pants. They put inner thigh pockets, they put lower calf pockets, they put pockets to make it more convenient. But for me, in general, I usually wear, it's going to sound terrible. I go to like Bass Pro and get the redhead stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
I'll go to Bass Pro shops.
Well, I'm not so much that it's like taking on or adding where
so
like
it's
what
pretty
I'm asking,
easy.
like,
Yeah, no, I got what you're saying. So it's pretty easy. I'm a leaf suit guy. So I will put things on and take things off a lot. Like for instance, you talked about the vest and stuff, you got to wear all those things. Putting a jacket on with a saddle is not hard. You literally put it on same way you would if you were in a tree stand. Now, if you want to tuck it in, then you got to, loosen your safety belt, your rigger's belt, and you can tuck it under, or you can just leave it over all of that because the bridge loops are going to be the only spot air comes in. So if you're up north, I'm sure that where it's really, really cold, you would definitely want to, tuck that. But down here, it's real easy to take it off and put it on using the bathroom out of one. So we talked about Dan Infalt. He did a video where he kind of picked on saddles and said, don't piss on your boots. And it was funny. I liked it. I really enjoyed it. But if you need to use the bathroom, it's literally as easy as you loosen your leg straps or remove them and you slide the saddle up and you can use the bathroom. You can, number one, turn out, twist, pee, whatever you got to do. Number two, you can still take the number two that way. I personally don't because I don't want that smell right where I'm hunting at, but I know guys that do it.
That's
and
impressive. Like, I mean, that's
And that's all, I mean, literally, because the rigger's belt with the bridge loops are really what's supporting you to the tree anyway. The bottom straps are not load bearing unless, like a fall was to occur. So you can loosen your leg straps and roll up the bottom a little bit and still be secured safe off to the tree while you use the bathroom, while you put things on or off. You know what I mean? As long as you don't remove that belt completely, you're strapped to that tree and unable to fall.
Okay.
So
Yeah, that was what I was asking. Cause like, it's like, cause especially with us, like you're going in, you're not going to wear a bunch of, like, you're walking a ways. You're like, I know if like the temperature going to drop in the evening, I'll have my extra clothes in my backpack. I'm not
in the
wearing them that
backpack.
early
Yep.
because then you get hot and sweaty, and then you're not getting warm after that. Like, your clothes are wet and everything. Like you're going to get colder quicker. So it's like I'll go in and hell, it can be 40 degrees and I might go. It depends on my walk. I might go in a short sleeve. Then when I
Yeah.
get there, put some gear on because
Right.
like I said, one of the
Not
places I
sweating all
hunt.
over it.
Yeah, it's a 2 mile walk. I don't care if it's 30 degrees. You're gonna work sweat up, and it's like carrying stuff in. So it's like that was my question. Like once I get there, like some people or and it's like or you can put it on there then go up, but if you don't put it on at the bottom and you go up and you're like, oh crap,
Yeah,
I'm
I
cold.
put I put a jacket on in the air all the
Yeah.
time. Like I'm the same way. I go out with limited amount of clothing on as
Mhm.
possible because
Yep.
a lot of times it's 80, 90 degrees during deer season. I even kayak because we hunt a lot of coastal wetland stuff.
Hmm.
And I'll take my kayak out and kayak or john boat somewhere and then jump out and go for my hunt. And so like once you paddle a boat for a while, you're sweating everywhere. You don't want it all wet with water while you're going. So what I'll do a lot of times is pack stuff in my backpack. I'll usually keep an extra jacket. I try to go out in a short sleeve shirt and especially something like breathable polyester type. And yeah, I put my stuff on not at the base of the tree, usually up, because even when you climb, if it's 90 degrees
Yeah,
outside,
it's
you climb to
hot.
15, 20 foot, you're sweating. So
Mhm.
I wait until I get up the tree and I usually take a rag or something and clean my face off, try to dry my hair. And then I put my clothing on. That way I feel like I don't want to say eliminated my footprint, but I would like to say I minimized it. I try to play the wind and I try to minimize my smell, and that's the best way I found to do it. So
Like the 90, 100, it was like it was hot. We were talking about that, and we I was on some public land in North Louisiana, and I got back a mile and a half or so, figured out where I was gonna hunt, was throwing my stand in the evening before, and I got extremely hot. Like I'm finished a bottle of water, like I'm pouring some water on me. So I'm like, crap. So like it's funny, but it's not funny. Like I stripped down to like my boxers and my boots. I put everything back in my backpack. So I'm walking out in a pair of boxers and like cowboy boots, like work boots. I round the corner and the game warden's standing there. He gets this look. And I'm like, hey. He's like, what are you all right? I'm like, yes, sir. I was like, my license is in my wallet here. I'll give it to you. And he's like, nah, man. Like, I was like, okay.
you're obviously having a rough day.
He's like, he's like, I'll check you hunt tomorrow. I was like, yes, sir. He's like, I'll check you tomorrow. I figure you'll have clothes on then, and just like walks to his truck and leaves. And I'm like, so the next day I see him. It's like, hey, cool. Hand him my stuff, and my dad was with me. And he looks at my dad. He's like, "This your son?" He's like, "Yeah, yeah." And the game warden's like around our age and everything. He was and I've made friends with him since then. He's actually he was in the Marines and everything, and cool as he can be. But he's like, let me tell you what I found this idiot doing yesterday. My dad's laughing. He's like, I was like, dude, it was hot. He's like, man, I ain't never seen nobody do nothing like that. And I'm like, dude, if I didn't know you was here, I'd have called for help. Like it was, and it's like earlier this year I was up there and I shot it. That's end of the year, and it's like I go over it on one of my recaps in the podcast. Like I killed a pig up there. It was like 45 degrees. Not bad, right? Load 175, drag out and load a 175-pound pig, hog by yourself. I'm like, man, where's Jeremy at? As a game warden, I'm like, where's he at? I get him to help me. Like, dude,
Right.
it was horrible. But I was like, it got me thinking of that story. I'm like, this dude probably like, nah, man, I ain't helping you. But it was like, but like you said, like it's hot. You're gonna carry, and it's like you want to have the least amount on then it's like, that's what I was asking. Cause like when the temperature drops, you want to put something back on. So how easy it is. And, you answer that. Cause like you get varying story, like opinions of, well, and it's like you said, though, as long as you leave the tether hooked up, you're,
As long as you're hooked to your tether with your bridge loops and your belt is around you, preferably cinched, but if you have to loosen it for a minute to, push it down, you're still supported to the tree. And it's not hard to put the stuff on. And something else, like you're talking about dragging them out, we shoot a lot of pig. Florida is overran
yeah,
ridiculously with them. Another thing I do, it's kind of like there used to be a thing called a sit drag, and you put it across your shoulder and right here, and
Mhm.
you can tie the animal to it and help you pull. I'll do that sometime with my saddle too, like because it's got the bridge loops, and I usually have some extra rope, either climbing or tether rope.
Yeah,
I'll usually like cinch up. If I get a hog, I always drag it by the rear feet because the hands are heavy and
yeah,
the head kind of just bounces. So what I usually do is go around the rear feet with the tether on the girth hitch, so it's nice and connected. And I will actually tie it up to the two bridge loops and with my saddle across like this, and use it like a sit drag to drag them out too, because you start getting over 150, 200-pound hog, and they're very low center of gravity. They're very, very, very bottom heavy. It ain't like a deer. You get a deer, you want to keep that buck's, head in
yeah. The
the
only
air.
thing that's gonna hang up on him is the head. Like,
Yeah. And with pigs, it's completely the opposite. I'll go by the rear feet and try to get the head to bang off of everything.
getting a little off subject when you and bringing that up. I was looking at some stuff and like y'all have a early South Florida has like an early bow season, like July 1st or 15th or something.
Yeah. Yes. Florida is diverse in that in general. We have our rut can be anywhere from like August to late February. Like,
That's the same here. Like,
yeah, and it's as little as like a couple miles away. Like I
yeah,
can go 2 hours to the west and the rut's in February, but right here where I'm at, it's in mid-September, end of September. So we got it that our bow seasons, South Florida starts, if I'm not mistaken, it is late. I want to say late July is what I'm wanting to say.
yeah, something like that. It's sometime in July. It's crazy.
But then in the panhandle, they'll be hunting all the way till March. Like we had the Florida saddle hunter, what we called the Florida saddle hunter meetup, and it was the first one that Florida has ever like officially had.
Hmm.
And I don't remember, we had like 20 people, 18 people, something like that. We had a pretty good turnout, and there were guys from all over the state. And a couple guys reached out to me, and they were kind of aggravated about when we were doing it, because we were doing it in our small game season. And they're like, dude, we're still hunting deer here. Like they were 4 hours west of us in the panhandle, and they're still like, they're like, man, this is our February rut. We can't miss this. And I'm like, dude, I can't appease everybody in Florida. It's just not possible.
Ours is
Because
crazy like that. Like our towards West Louisiana, it opens the third weekend of September.
Mhm.
You'll have rut mid to late October over in a couple of those areas. Like our place in North Louisiana has it mid to late October. West Louisiana has it that way. Where I'm at, it opens October 1st, but runs to February 15th. And you might not hunt rut at all. I mean, you might miss the rut. Like it might be 2 weeks after season. And then it's like, so basically, and it's like, then, or you hunt like you said, I can hunt North Louisiana and hit the rut in October. I can come down a little further, like an hour north of my house, just south of Mississippi, and hit a December, January rut. At my house, it's right around that February, January 30th to like February like 7th. So it's like you could hit 3 or 4 different ruts in the state, and it's like, and it's like I didn't know how close Florida was to ours with that, but obviously it's jacked up, because like I watch these people, oh, like from this day to this day we're getting. I'm like, that must be nice, like that, like it's like, and it's like you can. It's hard to plan like rut here because it's so crazy.
Well, so like that's the other thing, is that we have a quota system that is really unique too. They only allow like limited number of hunters during each season on their weekends and stuff. So like you go to a WMA close to me, Like my favorite is in Nassau County. It's called Four Creeks. I'm not getting Four Creeks. Like, I entered this lottery for the quota,
Mhm.
and every other dude that lives within 3 hours is also entering that quota, and they're only giving out, whatever, 75 or 150 entries. You're not probably getting it. So, they got a point system. I may miss the rut in my area because I never actually get an archery, tag this year here. That's why right after the neck surgery, rut was over. Like, you're talking mid-October, our rut is done here. But it was the only archery permit that I got, like the only archery quota. So I had to go. Like, I didn't care how bad I was hurt, how much I wasn't. I don't even know if I could have pulled my bow back at that point in time, but I was going no matter what, because I may not get another opportunity.
Right.
So,
And ours here, like I said, is like hunting the WMAs. I mean, they're pretty much they're open to anybody. And it's like I was looking like the way I have it broke down. You can start hunting this year, September the 18th. You can hunt all the way to February 15th, right? And you tie, and that's on public land in the state. And you can start with your bow, you can switch to primitive weapon, which our primitive weapon is anything 35 caliber or larger in a rifle. It would an single shot exposed hammer and single shot shotgun exposed hammer. So it's really not very primitive. And then your regular rifle, right? You can hunt on public land from then, like I said, for it's like 153 days and bounce to like I've got it broke down to like 7 WMAs that I want to hunt, right? I can hunt every day from September 18th to February 15th, either sex would, and that's with my rifle, my primitive weapon, or my bow, either sex, the way it breaks down. So it's like, and we get a 6 deer limit, which is kind of high,
yeah,
and
we
it's
get
like,
five. Yeah.
but it's like, and it's like, yeah, when they switched it to the primitive weapon, I'm like, like our primitive weapon, anything with an exposed hammer. And it's like, I use a 45-70. I have 44s for my little boys. But what's cool about that, like I just have them that because I shot them for a couple years and they don't really kick. But what's crazy about our primitive weapon season for youth, they can use any caliber weapon they choose. It can be a bolt action 270. And it's like, so
Oh man.
like if your kid is 16 and under and you're Louisiana and it is primitive weapon, so I'm hunting with a single shot, right? He can be hunting with AR-15. Man, I'm like, dude, like we have some, and I'm like, and it's like, so it's like we're fortunate, and it's like with some of the way they set our stuff up, and then some it needs to be changed. And it's like the other day they had the guy that used to be the biologist for wildlife and fisheries retired, and they have a new guy. Well, our deer herd supposedly had 1 million deer in it under the old guy. It has like 500,000 under the new guy. The old guy showed up and was like griping about, hey, y'all need to make some changes. Like, we need to knock it down for a few years throughout the state to like a 3 deer limit. Da 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 da. Like this, we're in. They basically told him he didn't know what he was talking about to leave. It was like, but he worked there for 30 years, But it's like, then what's crazy about ours, like we're broke up in just like y'all's is, but we're broke in 10 areas, deer areas, and a hunting club I hunted a few years back was literally in 2 different areas, and the 2 areas had completely different rules. The gravel road down the middle of the hunting club diverted the
With the separator.
separator of those 2 areas, right? On one side that I had to stand on, I could shoot a doe any day of the week, like any day of the year. It was open does, right? The other side, literally, my stands were 250 yards apart. Had doe days. I could only shoot does certain days, and we only got like 6 a year. And I'm like, really dumb question.
What happens if you shoot it and it runs across the road?
But no, not just that. I'm like, what if the game warden just decides like he didn't see where it was shot, but you got a doe and you're on this road? Like this is a big issue, because it's like, say I did kill it, like yeah, I'm gonna follow the rules, but I kill it on the right side. He doesn't know where I killed it at. I'm on this road with it. It's tagged, I've got everything proper, but it's like it puts the game wardens and everything in a situation too of like, it's like we got to really like that needs to be kind of figured out a little better. And it's like that what was in that same area on the side that you could only had kill so many does like per a doe day,
Mhm.
you could
Doe
only
days.
kill you can only kill 3 deer a year. But on the other side of the gravel road, I could shoot 6.
That's so crazy.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah, so it's like our system has some really good points and it has some really jacked up points.
Y'all should never be without though. Like, I mean, in my experience, it's a lot easier to get that doe than it is the mature buck.
Well, that's the problem. Like, you know,
But
they a
it
lot
puts
of
the pressure on the females that way too. And we
yeah,
had that
it's
talk
like
when we talk about fisheries is the more you pressure the female, you're not just killing that one deer, you're killing future generation of
yep,
deer. Whereas with a buck, it only takes one buck to, get 3 or 4 or 5 females in an area. Same thing with the fish. It only takes one nice bull to get a ton of, female eggs spawned. So it's good and bad. Like for your freezer, it should be amazing.
it's
My
like
freezer would never complain about that,
you know,
but
it's like
I might would complain for future generations. So
right, and it's like your kids, they get 3 tags. Like my little boys get 3 tags each. Like so, we could shoot 12 deer a year. That's a lot. Like
there's a lot
it's
of deer.
insane. And it's like so it's like it's like you talk about those groups. They had a guy posted with a Louisiana group, so they're looking for a hunting club for myself, my wife, and 6 kids. One of the guys is like, you got to pay for 3 memberships because like nobody gonna let you hunt. That's too many. Like, so
Right. You might as well buy your own private property.
that's what they told. They was like, dude, because that's 18 plus that's 30 deer y'all could kill. No hunting club's gonna take y'all.
No, no.
Like when I've laughing reading the remarks, and they're like, and it's like this other dude's like, I mean, y'all ain't got to worry about him hitting anything. Like, what do you mean? They was like, he can't pull, like, obviously he can't pull out of even his driveway. And I'm like, Jesus Christ! Like they were just like on this dude. I'm like, man, I feel sorry for the guy now because like if he did it as a joke, it went south quick. But it's like our state has just like every state, and but yeah, I think with that we're gonna start trying to bring this one down. We're a little over 2 hours into it, and I've really enjoyed it. I've learned a lot about your product and saddles in general, and look forward to like I'm gonna talk to you. After this, like I want some more information on the setup I want to run. I like the 2 panel, but I also like the way your original is set up too. I don't really know which one I want to run, so I want to kind of like talk to you more about it and see, because like I want an opinion of like what you think, because obviously you know way more about them than me. So and like going from there. So we'll talk about that later. But start bringing this one down. Like I said, I enjoyed the time. I thank you for taking your time, and I hope you enjoyed and everything. And we looking forward to talking to you more, and would love to have you on again.
Well, this has been a good time, man. I appreciate it. And yeah, you get with me because we also do custom orders too. That's something that's not, really broadcasted. So we'll work that out.
Yeah.
It's been fun talking hunting with you, and you be safe out there, man.
You too, bud. I appreciate your time.
All right, sir. Take it easy.
You too. Bye-bye.